and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our session today. Priya, could you share the slides, please?
Certainly.
And to the next one. Thank you. Yeah. So today's purpose is to give our EMA members an update on what the DEI Committee has done so far, what we've been up to, especially to those who joined our first focus group back in February. This is a follow-up from that event and to share with you our journey so far. So over the last few months, the DEI Committee have met together to define our goals and identify areas of topics and themes to focus on, address each of these themes affecting DEI in our industry by creating a plan and to implement our initiatives, as well as to get our members involved. We've also been looking at and have been looking at other event allies that we can partner with, who can help support or help us to implement change within the wider events industry, such as BVEP. So Priya, if you could go through to the next slide as well. And the next one. Thank you. So before we update you on our plans and activities, I would like to introduce you to our committee, and I'd like to have each person introduce themselves. So let's start with Louise, who is also our co-chair of the EMA DEI Committee. So Louise, over to you.
Hi everyone, lovely to meet you all. So yes, as May said, I'm Louise. I work at a charity called Media Trust as the Industry Engagement and Events Manager. And yes, as May said, I am the co-chair of the DEI Committee, and I'm also part of the EMA Education Subcommittee.
Thank you. And Claudine?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Claudine. I'm the Chief HR Administrator at 11 Infantry Brigade in Aldershot. As you can see in the uniform, I'm in the Army, and I'm also a member of the DEI Committee.
Thank you. Donna?
Hi, my name is Donna Aberley. I work for London & Partners. I'm a corporate events manager there, been there for about 3 years. And I'm part of the committee working at the moment on speaker panels and also the education subcommittees. Thank you.
Thank you. Emma?
Hi, I'm Emma Stoker. I sit within the Barclays UK events team, obviously working for Barclays. I also sit on the EMA Council, and I'm the DE&I lead, so supporting Louise May with this work stream. Yeah, so looking forward to all of the ideas and sort of conversations here.
Thank you. Gloria?
Hey there, I'm Gloria Dwyer. I work for UK Finance and I sit within the events team. I'm also a D&I lead at UK Finance, and I'm also part of the committee, the EMA committee, working in the subgroup Mental Health and Wellbeing. Hi, everyone.
Thank you. Liliana?
Hi, I'm Liliana Cannas. I'm a freelance events manager. I work with Gloria on the EMI Committee Wellbeing and Mental Health, and I'm really happy to be with you today.
Thank you. And Priya?
So hi everyone, as you all know, I'm Priya. I'm the General Manager for the EMA, and I help the committee in a supportive administrative manner.
Thank you. And last but not least, we do have Jasmine and Sinyu, who are sadly aren't able to join us today, and they send their apologies. So thank you all. Let's go to the next slide. So I wanted to share everyone the phase one. At the last event in February, I mentioned that the aim of the committee was to raise awareness of the issues and challenges around DEI and how best as an association to support our members by developing and creating practical guidelines or activities to implement change. We looked at all the categories within DEI, but needed help from our members to identify which ones were the most important to start with. As you know, there are so many themes and topics. And if we could go to the next slide, Priya. And so in order to help us really hone in on which ones to focus on, we held the focus group in February, which I think some of you attended, so thank you. And we identified the main themes that came out of that group, which today we can share with you our strategy and our plans. So the phase three, we identified the 4 main themes, and we have therefore used that and created the subgroups so that the committee members can create the strategy and plans around these. So the 4 themes are access and education, speaker panels, wellbeing and mental health, and EMA education. So I'm going to let each subgroup talk a little bit about what their plans are, and let's start with access and education. So over to you, Emma.
Thanks. So I'm working with Jasmine and Claudine on this. So Jasmine is unfortunately not here, but Claudine and I are going to sort of give you a very quick overview of the details of what we've sort of set up as a plan. So access and education is very much sort of focusing on sort of how we can increase access to the industry, how we can educate people on our industry and particularly corporate roles. I'll hand over to Claudine, who will sort of give you a bit of an overview of our objectives, and then we'll take you through our target groups.
Hello, everyone. In order to reduce barriers to entry for new and returning talent, the group aims to facilitate opportunities for collaboration and education. I will go into that a bit later on how we plan to do this. As we know, with a new talent or one that is returning, sometimes you can feel like there's a lot of things that you might not know, especially being new into the industry. And also returning talent, when you're away, especially with this pandemic, a lot of things have changed. So we've looked at things that we can do to sort of help reduce those barriers, but I will go into that later on.
Brilliant, thanks Claudine. And as Claudine touched on, we've sort of identified 3 pipelines and groups that we'd sort of like to target. The first one is new talent coming into the industry. So that's anyone who's sort of coming through maybe through a traditional educational route of university, or potentially school leavers, apprenticeships, or not via any of those routes, but looking to move across into events as a role. We've also looked at returning talent, and this is covering anyone who might be coming back into the industry, be that from taking time out for having maternity leave, carers leave, just taking a break from the industry and now returning, or having had a forced break due to potentially things like COVID, and are now looking at how they can get back into the world of events as we sort of come back to a level of normality. And then the third is supporting businesses, so how we can sort of support and educate businesses on increasing access and education to roles in the industry. If we could go to the next slide, please. So Claudine is going to talk through the first of those groups, new talent.
Yes, for the new talent, we've looked at some things that we plan to do in terms of trying reducing those barriers. So one of the first things that we looked at, we spoke about engaging with other council groups to ascertain if any existing opportunities are there for apprenticeship and internship. So my son is in his last year of high school, and I've had the email through with all these opportunities for apprenticeship and internship. And as I was going through them, I couldn't see anything on events whatsoever. There was all sorts of things, but there was nothing on events. So we plan to engage with the council to see what opportunities exist for new talent and also returning. We've also spoke about reaching out to other mentorship groups such as Elevate and Fast Forward 15 to see if there's any room for collaboration. I think mentorship is good. I'm a mentor with Fast Forward 15, and I know a lot of people, especially who wants to get into the industry, a lot of them look to seek for mentors. So we'll look to see if there's any opportunity to collaborate with these mentorship groups. We've also looked at an idea of creating a little welcome book for new joiners to the industry, which will outline any existing opportunities for apprenticeship and internship, and how to apply and contact details. I think that's a good idea especially for new talent. If they've got a little book that gives them a steer of who they can go to or where to find things, I think that would be beneficial in helping them. We've also discussed about engaging with the local high schools, and we talk about local high school and non-event-based universities, about careers fairs, and give them a copy of the welcome book, which is a good way to highlight events as a career option. We've also spoke about the EMA Council Talent work stream are establishing a list of universities to engage with for guest lecturing, student insights, etc. And we looking at suggesting this could be expanded to the schools as well. And then finally, one of the things that the final thing that we discussed as well, event grads and event first steps, working with EMA to establish an internship program. Further details on that will be discussed at a different time. Thank you.
Thanks, Claudine. And as Claudine mentioned, that links really nicely. Sort of, we're quite aware that some of what we're suggesting here links across some of the other work streams that are happening within the council. So Christopher, who's on the call as well, is working on some of those pieces around the first grad, the events grads and event first steps, and some of those programs. So there's a nice link there. In terms of moving on to returning talent, similar to the welcome book, we're looking at creating a handbook just for those that are returning back into the industry, giving them some tips, useful resources, just an overview of sort of what the industry is looking like in the state of the nation at the moment. Supporting that as well, we would like to look at hosting some workshops with members, with our wider community, to look at reframing transferable skills and supporting individuals coming back into the industry. And we felt that was particularly relevant at the moment, just based on the challenges the industry is facing, the number of event professionals who are seeking roles at all levels, not just new talent coming through the pipeline. And alongside that, sort of as we get back to a level of normal, EMA will be returning to sort of in-person networking events. And we feel there's a nice lens that we can transfer to that. And then our final point is around businesses. We would be looking to work with RCR to create a recruiting post-pandemic workshop and just give education on how to increase access and education and be more diverse across your recruitment process. And all of this around access and education is just opening events up to a wider talent profile, rather than sort of being possibly following the channels that are expected for events industry talent. But I'll now hand over to our next group.
Thank you,
Hi.
Emma and Claudine. Hi, Donna. I think.
Yeah, are you ready for me?
Yep.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Hi. Sorry about that.
All right.
There was a bit of a time delay on my side.
That's okay.
So yes, we're looking at speaker panels, and there was a two-pronged approach when we were first addressing this sector, this area, two perspectives. The first being when we as individuals are speaking at industry events, as individual members, or when we're representing the EMA. And then the second one is about organising speaker panels for our respective organisations in which we work. And we felt that this latter area was the one that we felt would be able to give us more traction and focus on for real benefit for our members in the initial stages. So that one was our main priority, as we thought it would give a greater influence in shaping the events across the industry, and we can provide guidance to our membership on creating more diverse and equal and inclusive opportunities on speaker panels. So then we looked at the different categories in which we work. So referred back to that. As a subcommittee, we have identified specific ones: gender, race and ethnicity, poverty and social mobility, so what lots of people refer to as social economic parameters, and disability and accessibility. And whilst well-being sits there as one of the main pillars for us, we removed this pillar for this sector as it is being discussed elsewhere by another set of the team. Our strategy, therefore, was to look at some key areas, firstly being measurement. So if we look, for example, we seek to look at perhaps the last 3 events or a certain number of events and assessing how are our panels constructed? What was the process that we went through? And what are the similarities that we're finding? For example, do they always factor the same sort of gender parameters, or age or seniority, race and ethnicity, and so forth? And really being able to ascertain what is the current state of play. And then in terms of looking at that, determining which specific categories or category to tackle. So we thought that the most likely ones would be gender, race and ethnicity. However, there may be others that perhaps our members want to focus on, and we're welcome to address those as well. In doing so, we thought that the best way to tackle that would be to create a checklist, formulating a checklist or a procedure for members to be able to utilise when seeking out member panels, with key questions to ask themselves or their respective stakeholders in terms of being able to increase diversity. And then challenging ourselves. What happens if we can't support diversity, equality and inclusion on our speaker panels? We have to ask ourselves the questions why, look at our own DEI policies and challenge our stakeholders and our processes to be able to improve and equal out the balance. And if we can't support diversity, equality, inclusion on our speaker panels, then it's about acknowledging the lack of diversity and bringing the audience along that journey too with us by including that in the content, the subject matter that we're talking about, and perhaps looking at other ways in which we can engage that audience if we can't get those key personnel up on the stage and speaking with us. So what actions do we need to take to actually fulfill that? So of course we need to find out how we're currently sourcing our speakers. We talked about a checklist and creating an action plan for that with a timescale, and developing practical activities and workshops with different scenarios as a training tool, not only for ourselves as members, but also to share with our teams and our stakeholders so that we can actually put all of this learning into action. Some of the suggested checklists that we looked at were perhaps asking yourself, how are you currently sourcing your speakers? If you're using a speaker agency, perhaps sharing these questions with them and getting them to respond. And if you're not, and you're using your own network, how can you expand that network so that we can include more people of a wider spectrum? And then we looked at what are your visible factors? So the visible ones will be, obviously you can look at me and you can see I'm a female, or you assume I'm a female. You can assume something about my age, perhaps my seniority in terms of my job title, and my ethnicity from how I look. But what about tackling those invisible factors? Social economic background, disability, LGBTQ+, and so forth. Are we collecting this information? And if so, how? And what are the best ways in which we can do this? We think about inclusivity, we can start looking into language. Is your language inclusive? Does it help assimilate the audience? Is it fully understandable by the audience? Is the content of your event enticing to the speaker, trying to avoid tokenism by placing one subject matter there for the sake of it, but really giving it a sense of purpose and being within the context of your event? And how have you ensured that the speaker would have an equal share of voice on the panel? Making sure that each person or the moderator is giving those underrepresented and less likely to speak up voices an opportunity to be heard. And balance, speaker versus moderator versus MC. Are you always placing these underrepresented groups within certain spectres and not looking at them across the whole spectrum of speaking? And then we've got a number of different assets and other organisations that we can collaborate with to achieve this. That's me done.
Thank you, Donna. And let's move on to the next topic, well-being and mental health. So over to you, Liliana and Gloria.
Thank you. So according to the USA recruitment site CareerCast, which published an annual ranking of the world's most stressful jobs, as we might already know, events fits in the 5 top jobs of most stressful ones. As we know, our priority is mental health and well-being, which has been, with the pandemic, even more exposed. So new health problems have arisen, and the old ones have gotten worse. So the purpose, what we ask ourselves as a committee, how can we improve in our well-being and the company we work for, allowing, of course, respecting their own policy to improve our well-being, finding a balance, and connecting people to existing support groups. As we know, it's really important to be able to have the opportunity to seek out for support when we feel that we have we might go in for burnout, and have the right support available. And what we want to do as a group, within the EMA, is to help our individual member how to combat stress, how to look for ways to improve their work-life balance, and give them the resource they can turn for help if required related to our own industry. Saying this, I'll let Gloria go more into deep about our steps.
Thank you, Liliana. So we looked at the short-term goals, and as we know, and as Liliana has mentioned, that mental health is now at the forefront of most businesses because of most certainly what's happened with COVID. And there are now excellent materials and resources to help us, bearing in mind that we as event professionals work very long hours, multiple projects, we multitask, and one of the resources that has become available, EMA partner with EventWell on providing and they provide a number of physical health and wellbeing classes, events such as meditation and online classes, yoga and Pilates, for example. The masterclasses cover topics from understanding stress, mental skills development to improving mindfulness. It's important more than ever that we as event professionals take active steps towards our well-being, and also ensuring that our colleagues do so as well. It's about supporting each other. There are a number of products and services available on the website, such as outreach and support. And as you know, Mental Health Week begins on the 12th of May, and that's one of the first webinars that's on their calendar, and that will help to teach us tips and practices of how nature can benefit mental health and well-being. There are also links to their upcoming events, so really, really useful site to help support. And we're also, above all, keen to hear from you and what you would like to see from us. So if you do have any ideas, please do get in touch. It will be great to just sort of share some of those challenges that we have and find solutions to. Thank you.
Thank you both. And last but not least, to Louise.
Thanks, May. So yes, I am part of the EMA Education Subcommittee along with May and Donna. So we are going to be focusing on educating you as our EMA members to help you increase your knowledge and also our knowledge, collaborate and ultimately help all of us ensure that we are doing all that we possibly can to make our events fully diverse and inclusive. So as a committee, we have our 5 diversity pillars, which May mentioned earlier. So they are the ones that we are going to be focusing on. As you've just heard from Liliana and Donna, we are, and Gloria, we have our subcommittee focusing on the wellbeing pillar. So for our subcommittee, we will be focusing on the other 4 pillars of disability and accessibility, race and ethnicity, gender and socioeconomic. Our plan is that we will be creating numerous toolkits in the form of best practice guidelines, different templates and checklists for you to be able to take away with you and refer to for all of your events that you are organising. We will also hold masterclasses with different experts and host workshops and arrange collaborative events with our associations to help all of us learn, as well as providing case studies and real life stories to help us fully understand and appreciate what it's like for those who do feel marginalised. All of these learnings and documents which we create as a committee, but also that we receive from experts and other documents that we come across as well. We are going to be working with the EMA to have a long-term goal of putting all of these on a resources hub on the EMA website to make it really super easy for all of us to access at all times whenever we need to and have a look at them. We also have another long-term goal that all of our members will become DEI accredited. So this will be in terms of signing a terms of ethics, which must be practiced and adhered to by being an EMA member. Since this education is to help you as well as us, we would also always welcome any input from you as our EMA members on what you would like help with and different areas that you feel your knowledge is lacking. So please do always feel free to reach out to us because we would absolutely love to put on events and workshops that you feel will benefit you the most and help you. So yeah, those are our plans in a nutshell. But just quickly before I hand it back to May, I wanted to let you know of an event which is coming up on Thursday, the 20th of May, called the Festival of Accessibility. It's free to join and includes talks from industry experts and practical tips and tricks on things such as digital accessibility, inclusive content like PDFs, social media posts and videos, and discovering what's next for digital inclusion. I will pop the link in the chat in a minute for you. So as part of the subcommittee, we will continue to share events like this with you to help you and all of us increase our knowledge, but also as well as obviously organising our own events specifically for you. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you, May.
Thank you, Louise. And thank you everyone else for your updates. So as you can see, there's going to be a lot of activities and the main or key heart of it is really our members. If you feel that you want to be involved, make suggestions, etc., please do. We're always keen to have, new members and feedback from you all. But before we move on, I just wanted to ask if anyone had any questions regarding our strategy or our plans. So I'm going to open up the floor to open up the discussion. Priya, are you able to put us on gallery view now that we've finished with the slides?
Yeah, it's on gallery on my screen.
Okay, great.
Hi, mate, Richard. What's the sort of the timeline on like the next phases? So, we talked about the strategy, which is great now, and we've broken it down into your 4 or 5 sections. Your teams are working things. What are the next sort of steps? And I just put something about we need to start putting something in the media. Or, when do you want to do that? When I've also agreed on your behalf to host a discussion at Stories Christmas events in September. I think that is. So that's yeah, that's a stage opportunity for a much bigger industry presentation, and just again talk about what we're doing.
Yeah. So just to answer that on behalf of the group, I mean, the short-term plans that everyone has been talking about, we're looking hopefully around Q3, Q4 of this week to implement. So anything like the PR side of things, Richard, we can discuss that at our next committee group to see when we can do that. And then obviously the longer term goals, we're still yet to define that, but it's an ongoing project or projects. Yeah, we're still, you know, kind of implementing all the plans. So
I think that's the key point made. These are all ongoing projects, and these are things that there isn't really going to be an end date. And
that's right.
Before we actually started this call today, like things like language and things like that, it's always evolving. So
exactly.
What was acceptable to say last year is it's a bit of a tricky situation this year, and that's always going to be the case. So in terms of end date, I think it's fair to say that there isn't going to be one, because it's going to be a continual learning process and adapting procedures and processes into how we
that's right
to keep our events up to date.
Yeah, but with the event side of things, obviously, you know, if we can start implementing some activities like workshops, masterclasses, etc., then we're looking at hopefully Q3, Q4 and onwards.
Excellent, thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else would like to?
Is there been sort of like any surprises or any success stories that you've come across so far when you've been sort of speaking to people? Have things been better or worse than you thought, or what do you think? What do you think so far?
In terms of
in how you find sort of like diversity and inclusion in companies or people that you've spoken with?
Well, when we first held the event, the focus group event, I think a majority of members already had some sort of DEI policy in place, but it's very generic. It encompasses, you know, the whole organization. But in terms of something specific for the events industry, there seems to be kind of lack of knowledge or understanding of where, you know, what the issues and challenges are. I don't know if anyone else from the committee would like to share any stories.
I would like to share something. It's not specifically about DEI policies as such, Christopher, but in terms of what the EMA committee has been really, really driven. Like I've been speaking to other committees and other associations that are probably years ahead of us in where they've started, but this committee started, I would say, properly at the beginning of this year. I mean, we got everyone into place by the end of last year, but you know, having concrete meetings and things like that. So in 5 months, we've already identified the areas we want to cover, the subcommittees, what actions we want to take place, what goals we want to have in place. And having spoken to other associations and organizations, because I'm involved in several DEI committees externally, the work that this team has done has been phenomenal in terms of what they've managed to create and put forward and suggest and to drive this forward. So I know it's not completely answering your question in terms of what I've seen, but as a story of a success, this is the success story that I'd like to share. And I want all of our members to know and I need to shout about how amazing this committee is in terms of what they've done and how they've driven and how they've all come together to actually put these actions into place.
Thanks, Priya.
No, thank you.
And hopefully we will continue with that. And like I said, if anyone else would like to, you know, join, please do email Priya, and we'd love to have you involved. either in general or in one of the subgroups. So yeah, please do speak up.
Fantastic.
I think one of the key things we need to do, and I think it shows as of today with like the numbers attending, is an internal sort of to member PR piece, as in talk about how important these issues are and what we could do, and unless they join in and listen and take part and input, we're not going to make very much change. So I think, I know it's one of the pillars around education, and there's both EMA education, external education, everything else, but that's one of the things we need to be looking at as soon as possible, how we then drive the message internally so that people are attracted to these knowledge shares.
Yeah. May I also take this opportunity as well, Priya? I understand that there's going to be an EMA survey going out, and there will be a section on DEI, I understand.
That's correct, May. So anyone that's watching, keep an eye on your inbox. You will be receiving a survey coming out soon, an engagement survey. And as part of that, we will be asking some DEI questions of our members. I think for us to initiate our educational program for our members, we need to know a bit more about who our members are. And as Richard said, in terms of engaging with you and being able to create content that is suitable and applicable and of use to you, we need to know who you are and what drives you as well. So when you do receive that, please take the time to fill it in. It's less than 5 minutes to fill in the whole survey, and that's going to be coming out very, very soon. So please do that.
Yeah. Great. I don't know if there's any other questions or feedback, comments. Anyone from the group as well?
Is there anything you guys can share from your experiences in now sort of joining this committee of, issues, challenges you're finding, or acceptance of the approach? Anything you've started to do? I mean, Donna, you'll be very proud of me. I was invited to speak at an event a couple of weeks ago in a few months' time, and I asked the question, who else is on the panel? And basically turned around and said, it's very middle-aged white males. Are you not going to do something about that? And they thought, so I said, well, I'm not going to speak on it unless you do. So
amazing.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And what was their response, most importantly?
They'll get back to me.
I mean, that's the hardest part, is actually having those challenging conversations and putting it out there, especially internally. When you're dealing with someone in an agency capacity that you're selling, if you're dealing with someone corporate, these are your internal stakeholders, and it's really a hard conversation to have. But I really urge people to have it. Obviously, it's very easy for me to say that when the current mayor, although obviously he's in purdah at the moment, is today's a big day, is obviously someone who's a huge advocate of DEI and personifies that in everything that he does. But I think it's about taking that moral issue, and it's just constantly asking those questions and challenging yourself. I literally just this morning we had a session about stereotyping and unconscious bias, and they gave us things to do, and this was just about listening to people's voices and how you make assumptions just on hearing someone's voice without seeing their name. It was sort of harked back to that program that's now on television, I Can Hear Your Voice, or I Can See Your Voice, that one on TV. But obviously this is in a working capacity. How do you make those assumptions? And it was really useful. It's eye-opening, and it's about transferring those skills in your everyday life as well. So well done, Richard.
Yeah. And I think also one of the transformative things that we are in now, this space where we do ask the question, where we do challenge, and I should say that's been quite encouraging. it sort of goes back to you know, what was said earlier in terms of that when we look at our panels, that now if we do have an all-male middle class, you know, that sort of image that I'm not going there, but that image that we're so used to seeing, that we do go back to our policy teams and say, look, can we have an alternative? So it is now pushing back just to be a bit more reflective of society and a bit more relatable. So I think, yeah, there's some positive, exciting things that are happening in our industry, and we will continue to fight the good fight.
I got something to say. I'm really happy to be part of this group because I feel like I found my tribe. Things are easy with you and life is more beautiful. There is an opportunity to express what you feel and what you think you can see and want to do to change, you know, the society and reality you want to live with, to make it better. Also starting from personal experience. And I found that the open-mindedness in this group is really cool. I feel really empowered. I had the pleasure at the moment to work with Gloria and Maya, but as an overall, it's been really grateful and amazing. And I look forward to more. I mean, I feel really blessed. Thank you.
And I think that's what we really sort of, you know, as a group, we all have different areas of diversity that we probably have more of a sort of a leaning towards or a passion for. And that's great because that ensures that we can sort of keep the conversation sort of moving and ensure that we're being representative of our industry and our members. But to Liliana's point, actually, what we want to see is we have a really nice group where we have very safe conversations. We can be, you know, we can ask questions, we can confidently and comfortably challenge each other in a positive way. And what we want to see is that ripple out across our member base and sort of have those conversations more broadly. Because without those sort of opportunities to challenge and question and understand, it's going to be really hard, as Gloria said, to sort of affect change. So it's nice to see. What we hope is that what we've got here, we can ripple out much more broadly.
And also, can I take this opportunity as well that, as you can see on this panel, it's mainly women so far. So we would really encourage some of our male members especially to really be involved, because your input is really important as well. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I know probably a majority of the people who work in events are female. I mean, I haven't seen the results of the EMA membership survey, so I don't know what the membership is made out of, you know, in terms of percentage male versus female. I don't know if you will be taking that data into account, and ethnicity as well. So yeah, so I really encourage everyone to be really involved with us and with our work.
I think that's a really nice place to wrap this up. I think that's a really nice way of encouraging people to get involved. Before we say goodbye, I just want to say thanks again to May and Louise, our co-chairs of this committee, who have put a lot of work in, not just with today's presentation and getting everything all like looking amazing and beautiful, but just helping keep, you know, putting this group together and you know, creating this cohesiveness that we have. So thank you for being amazing co-chairs.
Yes, guys, I'll add to that. Thanks ever so much. Well done, everyone. Great work.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
Have a great week.
Thank you. Until the next time.